think about the master class, we think about who are the best teachers that we know of in the entire United States. And we look at their resumes, their Instagrams, we talk about them in our board meeting, and we settle on a person who we think our wonderful regular quilters who already know how to quilt would like to have a master class and learn something they did not know before. And so this year, Sandra Chandler is our master quilter. And for 2 days, she has been teaching our quilters how to repurpose denim, i.e., that's my lawyer talk, i.e., buy some old jeans and cut them up and turn them into a quilt. But we added a cherry on top, and in addition to that, she also taught our quilters the Japanese sashiko stitch, which is an ancient stitch used in Japan for thousands of years to repair kimonos. So we love learning new things at the Atlanta Quilt Festival, and Sandra has taught us many new things. Let me just say also that I first knew about Sandra when she was a speaker at QuiltCon. I know a lot of you were at QuiltCon when it was in Atlanta, and she did a lecture, and she was just so energetic and just so into her topic, as you will see in a few minutes. And my daughter thinks she can make me stop talking, but she cannot. Not while I'm talking about Sandra. You know how children are. Okay, I'm putting her on blast and then ignoring her because this is called anticipation. Anticipation. But I was so impressed. Let me just say, from that one lecture, I was so impressed with her enthusiasm, her ability, of course, to speak, and her grasp of her subject matter, because she wasn't talking about what she's going to tell us about today. She was making a historical speech that required research. And I was just very, very impressed with that, as was everybody else in the audience. And we invited her. She's here. She is an international quilter, all the way now living in Nashville, here with us today to share some very special things that I will now let her do. Come on, say it.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, so y'all, I'm just like you. I'm just like you. So how it all started was, back in the day, oops.
No, you got one, but use
this. Okay, so back in the day, I'll show you how old I am. Home economics. When I say back in the day, so born and raised in California, Los Angeles, then we ended up going to Orange County, California, back in the day when my father got a promotion. He worked for the light company and he became the manager for 3 of the cities. Back in the day when we did not have those jobs. So when we moved to Orange County, it was very much a culture shock for me. I was in middle school, coming from Catholic school, going to public school in a county that was foreign to me. When I look back now, when I first entered the home economics classroom, my mother was not that woman. All the other women in the middle class neighborhood that we lived in were that woman. So they all knew how to sew and bake and cook and do all this stuff. And I think really what the teacher saw was a person that was open to listen. Because everybody else, in my eyes, was jumping out the seats, talking, doing all this, and I'm just sitting there going, whatever you say. And so that's how I began. It wasn't like I knew about color. I was so great with this, and I was at 3 years old stitching something. No, I literally went to home economics. And this lady poured into me, and she's the reason why I'm here today. And I'll talk about that. So let's hop sketch forward. I learned how to sew in home economics, and I also learned how to broil tomatoes. You know how you slice the tomatoes? That was a big thing. I don't even like tomatoes, but I still remember the whole lesson about putting them in the broiler. And she poured into me, and she encouraged me. And that was not her nature generally. She was a little uptight. But I can imagine middle schoolers with scissors and sewing machines and ovens, and like I'd be uptight. But she poured into me and was like, you'll be fine. This will be great. And at the same time, my mother's best friend knew that I was enjoying sewing, and she gifted me. She had gone to a fundraiser, and she gifted me quilting classes. So back in 1975, I learned how to quilt and sew in the same month from trained professionals. So when I say I'm trained from beginning, I didn't have bad habits because I had no habits. By the time I got done with high school, I ended up being the outstanding home economics student in my high school. I didn't even know there were awards like that. I was shocked. I ended up going to Arizona State University, where I majored in home economics, fiber and fashion, and marketing. From there, I went into the field where I actually was a buyer for major department stores, learned quickly that the top people that made the money were Jewish men. And I wasn't Jewish, and I wasn't a man. So I realized working on the weekends and right after Christmas was not my thing. So I ended up going into corporate America, and I stayed into corporate America. I have 4 adult children. They're all out of college. They're all on their own way. And during the time when I was raising them, my home economics teacher, you know how there's people that just watch you through your life? And we've never talked really about it because it was a teacher-student relationship. She calls me up and says, you're going to go and you're going to teach. You're going to go down to the city and you're going to talk to Mark, and Mark's going to be there. He's over Parks and Rec, and he's going to get you set up. So what did I do? I packed up my little stuff. I went down to the park. And so I've been teaching quilting since 1984. Yes. So from there, hop sketch forward. So I would teach and at the time I would teach after work, 1 night a week, something like that. So hop sketch forward, 26 years ago, my girlfriend found out a program. In California, they have a government program. It's under the Emeritus. And what it is for seniors, and it's to keep seniors active. You guys have that program here, where you can take classes for free. They're all different kind of classes. Well, we have that in California. And my girlfriend said, girl, we can make even more money. You go down there, and we are in a union. You get retirement. I was like, what? So we ran down, and I started teaching classes through the college, junior college, and college systems back 26 years ago. There was one problem. I had a 4-month-old. I was like, who am I going to get to babysit? Well, luckily, my father loves children that can't talk, can't walk, don't have their own personalities. He loves newborns because they don't do anything. So he would go and he would put him in the backpack, these backpacks, and we have a picture of him putting my son in the backpack, and he literally would walk for 2 hours. He loved that. He was from the country, that was his thing. And he would walk. And so the class was a 2-hour class. It was perfect. So he babysat my son, and to this day, they are like that because of that bonding. And so I started teaching classes. Let's hopscotch fast forward. There was a time period where the internet comes out. And so I'm teaching in your local area, I call it teaching in the closet. And the internet comes out. And at the time, my profession, I was actually a real estate agent. So we knew about social media. We knew about basically a website. And so I kind of knew about that. And I was like, well, I'm just going to post stuff that I do and what I like to do and what I think I'm supposed to do on the internet. So I'm going to show you one of our first quilts. So while I'm doing that, all of a sudden I'm getting some traction. And companies are starting to ask, hey, can you come and lecture for us? I'm like, yeah, okay. And I'm looking at my counterparts and seeing what they're doing. and I think that's upside down. And so I started lecturing and at the same time doing workshops. So here's one of my newer quilts. My idea of quilting with denim and quilting period and designing and inspiring others is doing what you haven't seen before. We all have seen pockets. We've all seen denim pockets. But how many times have you seen a denim pocket opened up? Raw edge. Integrated with other denim that's been repurposed. My whole idea of repurposed denim is let's keep as much out of the landfill as we can. Let's go back to what our great-grandmothers did and our ancestors did with fabric and clothing. I don't know about you, but my people, when something wore out, they would use the good part of it and make it into something else. Organic, this organic stuff, this isn't new. My great-grandmother was a farmer. That was organic. They didn't have all the pesticides. So I'm like, let's go back to where we started. Let's go back and let's use them. So for me, this was all about how can I use these pockets? How can I integrate them? And what does it look like? And how can I transfer that idea of you can use almost anything? So this quilt I made, I actually used the pockets almost, and I think I actually paper pieced these. So if you can look, there was a pattern, and then paper piecing or foundation piecing we call it, where you have a piece, you sew one piece of fabric on a piece of paper, you flip it over, you sew another piece, you flip it back over, you're saying, what the heck, why are you doing that? Well, it's supposedly to make it so it's perfect. And then you have to rip all that dang paper off. That's the part I hate. But that's what I did with this. And it's just an experiment to see if that would work and do I like it at all. Right, thank you ladies. We can pull up the next one. So as my journey goes on, then I start having companies calling me. I worked and did some samples for Alexander Henry. If you know of their fabrics, they are no longer in business because the father passed away and the daughter and the son decided to no longer stay in business. They wanted to do other things. They reached out to me. I actually made dresses for them for Market. Market is where the owners of businesses used to go to buy their fabric. They no longer do that. Now they actually have the designers and salespeople come to them. Here's one of our quilts. It's a later quilt. This is what I'm talking about when I talk about repurposed with the purpose, and how do we highlight and talk about people that have gone before us, right? Jackie Robinson. What I try to do is not necessarily write the person's name or write what I was thinking. I let you have a hint, right? And first of all, it opens up conversation. Some people don't know 42. And I go, oh, well, let me tell you about Jackie Robinson. This, I thought, he was a superstar. A man that could do what he did at the time that he did. To rise and up every day and be the best that you can be in spite of the odds. Being an athlete, 3 of my kids were college athletes. Every day, and my daughter, who was a college athlete, she understood that every day she hit that track, that they expected certain numbers out of her, they expected certain quality out of her, there was an expectation. But she never had to worry about where she was going to eat and where she was going to sleep and how people were going to react to her when she walked off the field or off the court. This man was amazing. He did it with dignity, and I just think he deserves a star. And that's why I decided to come up with this. The pattern is actually the long star, which is called the long star many times. That is repurposed denim. And if any of you know, when you get ready to cut denim and it's not straight on the grain and you're using biased and you're trying to get all those points to match, it is a miracle. Along with it, I hand quilted it because I hand quilt probably about 90% of my quilts. Why do I hand quilt? Because I love it. For me, it's my zen. It's my happy space. I realize that it's because it's very therapeutic. Hand quilting, just like sewing, there's a rhythm to it. For hand quilting, it's the needle, right? The needle in your hand. You're gonna feel it's the when it pierces, you know how they say when you're getting your blood, it's only going to pinch for a minute? Well, every time you pierce the fabric, you get that pinch, right? You're going to have that pinch. Then you that pulling through. So it's very rhythmic to me, the hand quilting. And that's what I realized. I'm like, this is very zen. It's very rhythmic. And then on the end of the day, at the end of the day, I'm able to look back and say, look what I did with that time. I don't know, there's something in my brain that talks about wasting time. And the one valuable thing in our life that the person that's getting ready to pass away thinks of is, I wish I had more time. Make sure you choose what you do, who you do it with, and how long you're going to do it with that person. I thought about that years ago, and there's some people I was like, yeah, I'm not going to waste my time with you in my life. I'm going to pass, and I'm going to move over here. So this quilt was done in thinking of all of that. What's interesting is when I put the star part together, I was like, normally it's just a single solid square in the corners. But I was like, wait a minute, I think I have 5-inch square blocks that will fit. And it's all about mathematics, and I think that's why a lot of boys love quilting and sewing. It's machinery and it's mathematics. And so when I did the numbers, I'm like, oh, these blocks are going to fit. And so that's how the blocks ended up there. If you look, I actually have a method to my madness. This is a thinner, these are lighter. Here, this row is a little darker. And then on the points, it goes back to almost like an ombre. It goes, so I did have a method to my madness when I was designing this. Thank you, ladies. So back through my journey. So as I was picking up some speed and kind of people were like, hey, can you come talk? Can you do this? I love my mother. We are opposites. She's like, so now what are you doing? And people pay you? What? How is this working out? Because she couldn't wrap her mind around it because she is not artistic. That, you know, this, everything in color, every color and every textile in her house is because I made her buy it. I grew up in a Navajo white her house inside, and the trim, she went out on a limb. The outside trim color is green with beige, you know. And then she gets mad when we don't notice when she repaints the house. We're like, but it's still green. Right? Okay, so this was put together. You remember the year? This was for a show in, is it South Carolina? Cookie, Washington? Charleston, that's right. There was a year that she said something about peace, it was something about peace, and I thought, you know what are the symbols of peace? How could we have world peace? And this was actually in that show, and I thought about the universal peace signs. What would that look like if we, anybody that looked at this, they would understand peace. What does peace look like? And this is way before anything that's happening now. This is way before COVID. This is way before what, I don't even think the towers had gone down when she had that show. So just think what we do nowadays. But I thought about the different continents and what were the peace signs, and that's out of denim. The background, the water is actually indigo dyed. And hand quilted, and then the back also was indigo dyed. So that was the piece for that. So as I was building up, you can pull up the next one. So as I'm building up steam, as I'm building up steam and starting to travel more and more.
A second, we can't see on this side.
Oh, go ahead. And I started traveling more and more. I started thinking about, okay, let's go back. What is your why? I don't know if you guys have read the book, The Why. And basically it talked about Apple. And Apple started out, the why for Apple, does anybody know the why for Apple? Apple was invented, and they started because they wanted to make our lives simple. They wanted us to be able to have everything we need at our fingertips, right? They talked about the customer, and that's me. I love Apple. Not because it's Apple, because I can pick up any thing, and I can pull up any item. Everything talks to each other. It's simple. It remembers what I don't remember. And so their why is to make our lives simpler. So it was the customer that wants a simple life. And I thought about that. I said, so what's my why? There are hundreds of quilting teachers. There are thousands of people that do what I do. But my why is bigger than quilting. My why is to motivate and encourage everyone that I speak to. And what's interesting about that is you don't tell people what your why is. You do what your why is. And the craziest thing about it was, after doing and intentionally making sure that I was encouraging and supporting and uplifting and making sure that when I taught and I did my workshops, that was my thing.
You must wait until these scales fall off on their own, which is...
Anyway, as we were so rudely interrupted, people would come up to me and say, you know what, I was so encouraged by what you said. Talks like this. And I thought, aha, I got it. I'm doing what, it's bigger than quilting. So again, with my why, this is a quilt, the inspiration is Mahalia Jackson. When I thought and did research on her life, it was a hard life. First of all, she gyrated, and those are the words they used. And so she wasn't able to sing in churches because back in the day, and I remember my grandmother telling me this, in church and in the world were separate. Church and world were separate. The way my grandmother told me is in church music you can clap to, you can tambourine, you can sway. That's it. And because when she sang, she kind of, they called it gyrating, but she was very much, her whole body, she was so into it that the traditional churches said, girl, you're getting out of here, because they felt like that was worldly. So here you are, she's known for the first gospel singer, but yet she wasn't kicked out of the church. She also had a hard life because back in those days, again, she could sing some places but couldn't sleep some places. She had diabetes, which was out of control, and didn't understand diabetes in those days. And so this quilt is in honor of her. It talks about her, her birthday. Those are scriptures on it. One of the scriptures on there is, and I think about this when I studied Moses, he got to the promised land but never in the promised land. He got to see it. He encouraged and got all the Israelites to stop whining, and then he whined and never made it to, and I'm like, how many times does that happen in my life? That I get to it, but I don't get through it. So this was all done, and this is one of those quilts that I made. The red embroidery, I actually just hand wrote that. I embroidered all that on there. Those were all different reds that I had. So again, when we talk about waste, I had all this embroidery red threads around me. And those are embroidery threads. And I thought, and they're not all the same color, and they're not all the same weight. And I said, but by golly, I'm using every one of these reds. And if one person comes up to me and says, Sandra, I think that red is a little different from that red, I'm gonna say, listen, get back. But that just shows you how really it's you who controls what you use and what you shouldn't use. Every one of those is a different, I mean, there's like probably 7 to 10 different skeins of red embroidery thread. And when one ran out, I picked up the next closest color and kept on stitching. The other thing in this quilt, which is really interesting, is this is the only one, girls and guys. This is back in the day where I was still stuck in tradition. I hand quilted with quilting thread. You can't really see it. That's a lot of stitching. But back in the day, we used quilting thread. The other thing is this reminded me of the Garden of Eden, and it was a little picture about this big, and I am not an artist. But I was like, God help me. So I kind of sketched it out. And again, like I said, you can kind of see here that this red is more of an orangey, and actually this is a back stitch. This is a chain stitch, so it sticks out more. But this was one of my first denim quilts that I did. And you're like, Sandra, why did you hand quilt it? Because I felt like it. I don't know, I feel like, and I started with quilts, you guys can go on. I felt, when I first started with denim also, it reminded me of African Americans after, when they were freed slaves and they were on the farms and they wore overalls, and my great grandfather or great uncle wore overalls. It also reminded me when I did my research, I never thought about this, when they were going through Martin Luther King with all those marches, they actually told the African Americans not to wear denim. They said to dress in your Sunday best because perception was that we wanted to look like we were educated. I never thought about that, but they were always in their Sunday best, right? And I'm like, they didn't have cell phones, they didn't have text message, they didn't have it, but they somehow or other the message got out, except one march. There was one march that was for farmers, and that's when they wore the overalls. And I thought, you know what? That is symbolism. That is powerful. And so that's when my journey also became with the denim. I was like, it represents more than just today, right? Here's another one of my pockets, quilts. And this is I have a whole series of them that I've just finished with the pockets. The white embroidery squares are, if you're a quilter and you go somewhere and somebody says, would you want any of this? How many of you would turn down something free? Yeah, I didn't think so. So I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Their Modern Quilt Guild had me come to a retreat, and I was their keynote. And one of the ladies had collected some fabric and everything. I said, no, I don't need nothing. No, I got it, I don't need nothing. I'm not even gonna look. And then it caught out of the corner of my eye, and these white squares. And I said, and I love taking old and making it new, right? And I was like, you know what, this reminds me of back in like the 50s. It's pre-printed, so you follow the dots, right? And they had, there's at least 100 of them, different patterns, like maybe 30 or 40 of each one of the same patterns. So this is one of the patterns, and I mixed it with the denim. I have so many more, as you can tell. And as I feel spirited, I did one set of red and white ones for all you deltas. It's red thread. So I'll put that together, but I love the marriage of the old, and do we know if the jeans are old or not? They could be. The other thing about using jeans is, what were the people like that wore these pants? What were their lives like? What do you think? Yeah, we don't know. Were they old? Were they young? Were they CEOs? Were they farmers? Were they Americans even? Because just because I got the jeans, and that's a whole nother story, doesn't mean they came from the United States. So what a beautiful way of marrying people from all different walks of life into one piece that talks about togetherness and history. So that's how that piece came together. And so as I've gone through my journey, the one thing that I've learned for me is, and I told my kids, is to be the yes person. Because life's going to give you opportunities, and I believe that everybody gets the same amount of opportunities. It's what you do with those opportunities. And they're always going to feel foreign, because they're opportunities that you didn't think of. You didn't chart out those opportunities. And there's been some opportunities and things that I've done that I don't tell my mother until I'm done doing them, because she'd be like, girl, you better sit yourself down. What you doing? But there's opportunities, like she said, I was able to teach in England. And the craziest thing is, each one of those goals that I had, I was able to accomplish within like a, I want to say 7 to 10 year period. Not trying to accomplish them, just putting it out there. And so when it came time to teach in England, they're like, yeah, we want you to come. And I was like, okay, all right, I guess so. And my mom was like, what? Where are you going? I said, yeah, I'm going to England. I'm going to teach quilting. The thing about when you go out of the United States is you're going to a culture and a people that are not like us. They're not going to think like us. Their materials that they use are not like you. their goals and aspirations as a quilter, artist, person are different. The first thing I found out was a lot of them traveled by train to get there. I had people from Germany, because that's where, when you're in school, do you think about geography? I hated geography and history. But now that I'm older, I'm like, maybe I should have paid a little more attention. But when I get there, I'm like, you're from Germany? Oh, okay. So you're talking and dealing with people from all over the world, which makes you just which makes, I think, all of us a better person and a better artist. This particular piece, which is one of my slides, I was inspired by the play Fences. So as I was growing up, my parents tried to let us see as much of the world as we could. And they took us to plays. Pippin was my first play I ever went to. Yes. I still remember the program. And so I was introduced to a lot of musical theater, art. Some of it I liked, some of it I didn't. My father took us all over the United States. The bicentennial year in '76, I had attitude back. I was a middle schooler. How dare you take me all across this world, or the continent, so I could see the bell come down off. Like, what do I care about the bell? And I remember seeing, at the time, we were in Boston, and the Queen of England was at a parade. No one was lined up. I don't even know if they thought she was going to be there. I don't know. I don't understand. But they're like, the Queen's coming. I'm like, the Queen who? And we literally walked to and she looked the way she always looked. That lady never aged. I don't know what it was, but she literally never aged. And I remember waving at this white lady that looked old in this car, no Secret Service around. She was just in a car. And I'm just like, okay. And so we literally went around the United States, the bicentennial year, to see all the different things that were there for us. But Fences was very important to me. I think about Fences, they talk about the Fences. Yeah, it is a little, maybe we want to turn the fan on, some people are getting hot. The Fences keep people out and keep people in. Are you creating fences around yourself? And who are you keeping in and who are you keeping out? This quilt was made with a chain stitch around each one of these little pieces, independent of the quilt. So the chain stitch was made first. Then the quilt was, the whole quilt piece was put together. It was put together, then chain stitch. Then when I got ready to quilt it, I was like, what do I do? I don't want to interrupt this, but what do I do? So I went back. You always got to go back to the basics. You can't leave the basics. I actually went back to quilting thread. Because again, I think of quilting as layering. So you have your base quilt piece. You may add embroidery, you may add applique, you may add quilting thread, you may add patterns. To me, that's almost like a painter. You're layering on top, right? You also have the light and dark, which is going to give you the layering effect. So this one is all a tribute to, and you can tell I don't like sleeves. I pinned the sleeves. I don't like sleeves, you guys. Sometimes you gotta be, like, why didn't I just sew a sleeve on? Safety pinning probably took longer, but. Okay, so we just got done with sashiko. So you sashiko people that were in, and it's actually sashiko, is how you're supposed to say it. I was in Japan for 3 weeks, about 2 years ago. And here's a piece that I took, a piece that I had already stitched. And I'm showing this to show the quilters and anybody that's interested in taking and making something out of a piece they've quilted. What I did, or you stitched, what I did was, here, we gotta go over here, what I did was I left the horizontal unstitched. So that's what I quilted when I put it all together. So I stitched the whole piece except the horizontal, right? So then when I added all the pieces, and it's supposed to be a sunset. See, here's the water, and here's the sun. So the whole idea is, how do you quilt this without interrupting the stitching? And I just left the horizontal pieces, that those then go all the way through. All right, so gives you some ideas, you stitchers? All right. Okay, so here's one of my quilts that is very much one of, I'm really proud of this next quilt. Women and men, I haven't done a man's one yet, but I will. But there's some women in our lives of history that have really done some amazing things. They're not always the first ones, so the first to do something are not always the ones that get the credit, right? We all know that. But here's a piece, and we talked, it was back a couple years ago, it was something that was going around a lot about Rosa, this whole saying, and when I heard it, I was like, oh yeah, it's gotta be a quilt. That's just, it just, and this is a pattern of mine that I've designed. This is a quilt pattern of mine, and the circles are all, they all go together because one person did something that then involved the next person, that didn't then involve the next person, and then involved the next person. We are all charting our paths, right? You have no idea, like my home economics teacher, she had no idea that her speaking into me would end up in Atlanta, Georgia in 2025. So I love this piece. I love speaking of history, speaking of my truth. I hope it inspires people, whoever you are, wherever you are, to think about all the people that went before you and how you can reach down to the next generation. So this piece, and these are actually colored denim. See how the pocket there? So yeah, so it's hard to find because we don't do color. Back in the day, we did have quite a, denim was color. It was kind of in. It went out and it hasn't come back in yet. So I'm waiting, but that's what. And you notice this all hand stitched, all hand quilted. Again, at this point, I started using threads that were dark color, like colors that you could see. My whole idea now is, I want you to see every single stitch because that took time. So I'm never going to use a blue on a blue. I'm going to use a yellow, I'm going to use an orange. Again, if you're going to hand stitch it, you need all your kudos. You need everybody to see it. All right, let's see. Okay. So again, Cookie Washington, she had the year after Mahalia Jackson died, or Mahalia Jackson, a year after Maya Angelou died. It was all about Maya Angelou and her life and what her life meant to you. And so when I was thinking about her, I thought, what is universal? What immediately, and I was like, cage birds, clearly. Like, who doesn't know about a cage bird sings? And so that's why I did the cage birds. And I'm going to tell you the story about this quilt. And if I hear this story out of this room, I'm going to know that y'all talked about me. So don't think I don't know. So this was one of my earlier quilts that was in a show, before I understood about curated shows. So here I was, I saw her little thing, and I was like, oh, okay. I was all excited. I ran, got my little denim out, got my little stuff out. This African fabric, I have a daughter who, when she was in undergrad, she traveled around the world with a program called Semester at Sea. And because I was helping fund that, I said, you better bring me back some fabric. And so she brought me back some African fabrics. And so when I was thinking about this, I thought about the cage birds. And I ran to my sewing machine, I sewed this together, I hand stitched the cage birds. I have some of the birds out because at one point she lost her voice and she wasn't talking. At one time she did get her voice back. And so I ran, finished the quilt, hand quilted it, went back to the directions, and this quilt was a foot too long. So I was like, okay, rotary cut off a foot of it. So then I bind it. I then send, you have to send them pictures, and then they say, oh yeah, you, and so before that though, so I cut it off. And so I'm at a quilting guild meeting, a modern quilt guild meeting in Los Angeles, which was the original guild. And I'm just talking to one of the members. Oh yeah, I made a quilt, and yeah, it's gonna be in this show. And she goes, oh, so did you get picked? I thought if I send my $35, I gotta get picked? And so then I said, so I ran back. I did not know. I was like, oh my, you gotta get picked. So luckily, she liked my quilt. I had no clue, you guys. So she called, so Cookie actually calls me on the phone. Hi, I love your quilt. I said, oh, thank you. I'm so excited. I'm like, oh, thank you. She goes, but there's a problem. Okay. She said, at the time, there's poems that I've written on here. The cages were not over the poems. And she felt that it was a copyright infringement, even though it's art, and it technically is not a copyright. But she's a curator. She gets to call. And I said, okay, And she says, so what I need you to do is cover up some of the words and then just send it. And she goes, click. And I'm like, okay, what is that gonna look like? I'm like, I don't even know, because this white fabric, this isn't fabric. My girlfriend had given it to me. It's like, a remnant. I was like, I don't even know if I have the rest of that. And I'm like, she wants me to cover it. I had no perception of what I was gonna do, but this is how powerful words are. The way she spoke, and she didn't say, send another picture. She said, and then just send it. She was so positive that I was going to be able to do this. I said, okay. So I go back to my little studio, and I'm looking, and I put it together. And the reason why I tell you this story is because when your creations or whatever you're doing goes left, and that's not what you thought it should be, go with it. At the end of the day, this quilt looks better than with the extra foot, because that was dead space. It looks better because I added more cage birds, so it gave it more depth. Because I went with everything that came my way, the piece ended up better than what I had imagined. So when you're making your pieces, when you're doing whatever you're doing, and it goes left, honey, just go left with it. And literally, I could not believe when she said, oh yeah, just send it. So here's, I think, our last quilt before our finale. It goes up this way. So you remember this, when they were hammering, so when the Supreme Court Justice, she was getting hammered, right? They were asking her all these questions. They hadn't asked nobody else. And our congressman was up there saying, girl, look at your daughters, your parents are excited, your mother, your husband's proud of you, da-da-da. And when he said, sis, we got you, that resonated. Can you imagine if you wake up every morning knowing that we got you, that somebody's there for you? So powerful. And again, for me, words are powerful. So if you don't remember these quilts, don't remember me, please remember that your words are powerful. So our grand finale, I actually finished this quilt last week.
You want to do it before the slides?
Oh, we don't have to do the slides.
Okay.
The slides are just more, some of the quilts. If you want to know more and see more of my quilts, I'm terrible about advertising. My name and I go on social media, and you can see my Instagram, and I post all of my products and what I do and where I do it. It's Sandra Lee, Lee Design. So if you go up, I'm on Instagram. I have a Facebook page. I have a website. So this is my newest. It's 10 feet by 10 feet. And so I'm going to do three. I have three of these, and they're all kissing cousins. They're all denim, but they're not all the same pattern. They all have repurposed denim and bought, yardage. They all have Japanese fabric, and they have American fabrics. They're all going to have the three first that I'm starting out with are poems that I memorized as a child that are relatable for today's times. I felt like this poem speaks to where we are today for me.
Right. Now quickly, that quilt is heavy.
It's everything is hand appliqued, hand quilted.
Can you read it?
So it's Langston Hughes. Who's back there? Go for
I
it.
do sing America. I am the darker brother. They send me to eat in the kitchen when the company comes, but I laugh and eat well and grow strong. Tomorrow I'll be at the table when company comes. Nobody'll dare say to me, eat in the kitchen. Then, besides, they'll see how beautiful I am and be ashamed. I too am America.
That's right where we are.
All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Christina, take your pictures quickly. You see, I had to get 2 strong men.
Yes.
Is this your quilt?
No. That's amazing.
Snap, snap, snap.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
Let me see, Tom. That is beautiful. That is beautiful. Yeah, yeah. I'd love for you guys to follow me. I just got a residency in Nashville on 4th Street. So where we'll have, if you're ever in Nashville between now and next July, we have an art walk, but we're also in our studios. And if you're coming, tell me. I will definitely be in my studio. I'll be working on all of the rest of the series of quilts for that. So please follow me. I would love it.
Was
Any
Sandra
questions?
wonderful or not? Yay! We
Thank you.
love Sandra. We have a little gift for you to take back to Nashville with us. Of course, the Good Trouble Quilts book. We cannot let you leave without the book.
Yes.
If
Oh,
you're
I'm
in
so
the book,
excited.
sign it for
Yes.
Sandra.
Yes.
We have time for a few questions. A reception follows, but we do need to try to be out of the building by 5:30.
Okay. Any questions?
We have 20 minutes.
No questions? Oh yeah, go ahead.
I don't know quite how to put this, but for you, is there a connection between denim and the fact that it is,
The largest, tallest person's jeans. Now, if you want to know how to get big jeans, this woman is the queen. She got big jeans that I've never gotten before. So I don't use the stretch.
Goodwill, triple X.
Yeah.
Quadruple X. They were
The
big.
lettering on the last coat was just raw edge.
Yes. Oh, it's felt. Yeah, it's felt. So yeah, so I stitch, well, and if you notice, it's not perfect. So for me, I'm on that G's Ben side of it. If it was perfect, then I would just buy it from the manufacturer, and it would, I don't want it to look perfect. So, I mean, not that I try my best, but, good enough is good enough. No, I use my Cricut.
Okay, I know you want to have time to take selfies with Sandra, so we're going to end the presentation at this time. The reception is in the hallway, and she'll be happy to take pictures with you so that you can put it on your Instagram and Facebook and say you took the picture at the Atlanta Quilt Festival. Let's give her a big hand.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
You were amazing.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you,
Thank you. We loved it. We loved it.
Yes, ma'am.
He's been.